towel fell from the bathroom wall while I was bathing our 2 young sons. And behind that wall was rotting wood and termites. My 4-year-old turned to me with his eyes wide, startled by what he was seeing and trying to understand it, and he says, "Mommy, what's that?" That moment took place in 1997, just 2 months after we had purchased our very first home. It had a white picket fence, a beautiful oak tree in the front yard, and a small office to the side that I had already claimed as my own before we ever even unpacked the first box. To anyone else, this was just a house, but for us, it was everything. My husband had grown up in public housing, where stability wasn't assumed, it was something that was earned. So this house wasn't just a place for us to live, it was proof that discipline worked, proof that sacrifice meant something, and proof that we were building a better life for our children. So I remember standing there, smelling the mustiness and dampness behind that wall while I was holding my scared son. And a feeling came over me that I wasn't prepared to feel. Not just disappointment, not just frustration, but shame. Because we had done everything right. We had saved, we had planned, we had followed the rules. And yet, we had built our dreams on something that was already breaking. Outside, the house looked perfect, but the structure was compromised. And what I didn't know then, what I know now, and I understand it very deeply after being an executive in corporate and after being a general contractor, that not just homeownership lessons were learned that night, but leadership lessons were learned. And leadership is architecture. And all of us, we're building something. We're building a career, a team, a family, a legacy. But all too often, we spend our lives building around visibility, the title, the recognition, the success. It's what I call the white picket fence version of leadership. But no backsplash has ever fixed a broken foundation. So if you want to build something that lasts, something that will withstand pressure, change, and time, you must master 3 important structural elements: foundation, framing, and reinforcement. Foundation. In construction, the depth of the whole determines the strength of the structure. In leadership, your foundation is your identity, and most unknowingly build on unstable ground. They tie themselves and their worth to their title, to their performance, to being the smartest person in the room. And that works until it doesn't. Because the moment something shifts, the role changes, the title is removed, what felt stable at one point suddenly feels uncertain. I remember when I became the vice president of risk and compliance. I had come from sales leadership, and I was surrounded by attorneys, auditors, regulators. They were speaking a language that I did not fully understand. And I felt imposter syndrome come over me. And I asked myself, "Tammie, do you even belong here?" I would walk into meetings and compare myself to everyone that was in the room. How they spoke, how confident they seemed. And I started slowly but surely to shrink. I was present, but I was not grounded. Until one conversation changed my mindset. My husband looked at me and said, "You have worked too hard to shrink now. Don't let what you don't know affect what you do know." And something shifted in me. I realized that my identity was being built on what I did and not on who I was. So I rebuilt it, not around knowing everything, but around being a learner, not around proving myself, but around bringing value. And I changed how I showed up. Because when your foundation is solid, you don't walk into a room trying to be accepted. You walk in already anchored. Framing. If the framing of a house is off by even a fraction of an inch, everything above it will be distorted. Doors won't close properly, walls will shift. You can paint it, you can decorate it, but eventually the misalignment will show up because the level doesn't lie. In leadership, framing is integrity. It's the alignment between what you say and what you constantly reinforce. I once sat at a national meeting, and this company looked exceptional, and I wanted it to be exceptional. I really believed in the company. Transparency, culture, those words were being used everywhere. But something felt off because what was celebrated on the stage was not being reinforced in the hallway. It was two different experiences, two completely different buildings. They talked about transparency, but the unspoken rule was to be silent, not bring any attention to anything that could possibly be wrong. So while transparency was on the wall, the door was stuck. It wouldn't open to the truth. Because when what is said does not line up with what is reinforced, people disconnect. That's not a culture issue, that's a structural failure. When a frame is crooked in leadership, trust will erode. When alignment is present, it creates safety. And safety is the only thing that allows a team to stand tall when the structure is under pressure. Reinforcement. Reinforcement is the steel behind and inside concrete. You don't see it, you don't celebrate it. There is no one in history that ever says, man, that's some beautiful steel reinforcement. That's just not gonna happen. But it's needed because it allows the structure to withstand pressure. In leadership, your reinforcement is discipline. It's the discipline to have the conversation that you would rather not have, choosing clarity over comfort. And I didn't learn this in a boardroom. I learned this at home. When my son made the decision to join our construction firm, he was in his 20s, living a wonderful life in Dallas, had a successful career in automotive financing, fast-paced, high performance, surrounded by opportunity. But he made the decision that changed the trajectory of his life and our business. He left that life, and he came back to Memphis, Tennessee. Now, Memphis is a beautiful city, but it's not Dallas. It was a totally different rhythm. And he didn't come back for a better opportunity. He came back for us, to help us build something. And that decision, it was a real sacrifice. And without realizing it, we mishandled it. We weren't leading him, we were parenting him. And any leader knows that a parenting strategy does not work on adult children. We were correcting instead of coaching, directing instead of developing. And the tension didn't explode, but it built quietly. In the conversations we avoided, in the assumptions we made, in the way we showed up. So we had to stop, step back, and ask, are we building a company or are we destroying our relationships? Because discipline in leadership, it's not about just holding the standard. It's about how we show up when the relationship is on the line. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your structure. Storms are not optional. Pressure is not optional. Change is not optional. But storms do not destroy strong structures. They reveal weak ones. So don't wait until the storm. Do your audit now. Where is communication breaking down? What are you building on? Ego or values? Because what you ignore, it doesn't disappear. It gets built in the structure. After 18 months of sacrifice, working hard, making repairs on that home, we sold it. We didn't make any money. But what we gained was far more valuable than equity. We learned to inspect before we build, to examine, because what you don't examine is never going to disappear. And the lessons that followed me everywhere, in every room, every role, every decision, because leadership is not just a title, it's a design. And every single one of us, we're building something. But the question is, when the pressure comes, what will still be standing? And more importantly, what's holding it up? Because whatever it is, that's what will determine what stands. Because leadership isn't announced, it's built. Thank you.